Hello everybody, this is Moletrap and welcome to a map overview of the new OSL map. That's the On-Game Net Star League. This is Tears of the Moon, and in case you didn't know why it was called that, it's because there's a big flippin' moon in the middle. Well, actually they may have called that first and then decided to put a moon for good measure. Anyway, moving on. This is going to be a really interesting map, and I mean that in a very true sense of the word. There are a lot of interesting little quirks about this map which may or may not come into play, but that might make it very interesting and might show us some unique strategies and that sort of thing. So, anyways, so just to get started, first of all, at first glance, there's some concern about the balance of the different spawn points, namely the fact that the 6 o'clock spawn point obviously has less space to build in. It looks like a smaller spawn in general. Then up here you have a lot bigger space to work with. Although then conversely, you actually have a smaller line to defend against people dropping what have you. Then this is a little bit longer of an area that you have to watch out for or cover what have you. Although then there's huge open spaces that you can drop from behind anyway. So that's going to be something that's going to be interesting, that there's all these open spaces behind all the spawns that you can come in from. So not going to be too surprised to see again, usually if there's a small space, you'll float a building back here to watch for drops or something like that, but it's going to be hard to cover that whole area. Anyway, but I actually went into the game and looked around a little bit, and this space looks like plenty to build a nice decent sized base in. I mean, maybe if you've got like 20 gateways later on in the game it'll be tough, but you've really got these pretty decent sized chunks on the sides to build plenty of stuff on, and so I don't think it'll be too big of a deal. Some people are worried about the fast expansion possibilities, especially against Zerg, and I think that is actually a bit of a concern. Not as much of a concern as some people think, but well, let me really quickly go through kind of where your bases are. Your spawns, you've got your 3 spawns right over here, these little 3 spots there, okay? And, get rid of that. There we go. Okay, so after your spawn, you've got right down a ramp here to a natural base, okay, a natural expansion. Now, actually, first off, I'll mention also that there are 8 mineral patches at the main and at your natural, so there's not as many minerals as there normally are, and I'll come back to that. Then for your second expansion, or for your third base, you can either go all the way around here, or you can go back behind and break through these power regenerators. They're stacked in 2s, so it'll take a little bit of time for you to break through those, but eventually you'll be able to get through them. And then there's a mineral only natural right here. I almost drew heart. Oh, heart. Heart. StarCraft. Okay, I'm a horrible artist, by the way, in case you didn't notice. The mineral only here is 3,000 minerals each, so it's going to take a while for that one to run out. So probably going to see a significant amount of games that'll just go off those 3 bases and then try and go from there. Or the fateful third gas is down here at the kind of the 4th base. So I wouldn't even be surprised if some players went down here and just skipped their mineral only altogether and tried to get that third gas. After that, it's going to get really difficult to take bases. You're going to have to start going way out over here, or way down over here to this other spawn point, or things like that. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Now, coming back to these minerals, a lot of people are thinking this map is going to favor Zerg a lot for a couple of reasons. For a few reasons. The minerals, most of the good Zerg units are very gas-based. So having less minerals is actually advantageous to the Zerg. I mean, if a Protoss has extra minerals, they can make some Zealots, and Zealots are awesome. And so they're not going to be hurt by that. If a Zerg has extra minerals, all they can really do is make Zerglings, and those generally are just units that are thrown away to take damage for other units, or later in the game they're good with ultras or whatever, but I mean they're good in combination with other stuff, but the point being is it's going to be a little bit better for other races to have extra minerals. So that's going to be advantageous to Zerg. Also, you know, as I mentioned, there's two different ways that you can get to this natural base. So it's going to be really tough for people trying to fast expand either as Protoss or Terran against Zerg, or you know, just about any matchup. It's going to be tough because there's always going to be that possibility of a flank. You know, you're probably going to see vultures running in here and trying to pick off probes. And you can set up a pylon wall, but then you're going to cut yourself off from possibly reinforcing your next base. You know, you're going to see people try and set up cannons in the front, and then Hydralisks can come in right through the back. That sort of thing. Now, it's not quite as bad as it looks as far as, like, you know, a forge expand for Protoss. This gap here is actually quite small, and then once you have your Nexus in place, this gap here is also quite small. I don't know if you can see that on YouTube resolution, but so I think with some clever building placement, the Protoss fast expand build is still going to be very viable against Zerg, depending on what strategy you go for. If you're going for a longer term strategy, it's still going to be really easy for Hydralisks to come in behind here and do some damage, but it's not going to be impossible. And it's not going to be very difficult to defend against speedlings, actually. Well, not any more difficult than it usually is. But I think you can probably just throw a gateway in there and throw your forge here and a zealot or something like that, and you should be able to defend against you know, a speedling attack pretty early on, pretty easily. Yeah, I'm really worried about, you know, early Hydralisks coming in here in the back. Or if you put cannons in the back to defend against that, Hydralisks can come in the front as well. And then theoretically set up a nice little lurker contain on this decently wide ramp as well. So kind of like Blue Storm, actually, in a way, in the fact that you have your second base and then you have to go up a ramp to your next base. That's kind of interesting. Anyway, and more Zerg favoring here going on. If you'll notice, this section here behind the mineral only, not buildable. I'm not sure what's going on over here. This base is just on crack. Look, over here you've got these like blue cliffs. Over here you've got these blue cliffs. Over here you've got like this random wall structure. It's like they built a wall to protect the wall or something. There's like a wall behind the wall. Anyway. But regardless, all three locations you can't really put turrets behind, so it's going to be really easy for Mutalisks to come in and harass the natural base. So again, Terran versus Zerg, again, going to be a little bit more difficult because of that. You know, we've seen players put their turrets in their mineral line, and that's to some decent effect. And so it's not going to be impossible to expand there. But it might be more difficult. So, you know, you might see some more one-base strategies on this map because people are going to be afraid to try and take this expansion. You have a nice, it's a pretty small ramp. Actually, I mean, it's normal size, but relatively small ramp to defend. So it'll be easy if you have one base strategy to hold your ramp and that sort of thing. Although, again, you know, there's going to be plenty of ability for people to ferry troops in or something like that. By the way, I did this whole video, and then at the end of it, it turned out that the video was messed up. So if I'm not even sure if I'm saying some of this stuff twice because I know I've said it once, but I don't know if I've said it once in this version of the video or if I said it 10 minutes ago in the other version of the video. So, anyway, moving on. What else was I going to say? Nice open area in the middle, also good for Zerg. You know, if any Protoss or Terran are stupid enough to move their army out in here in the middle, then they are going to get nicely flanked from all freaking sides, from all these big, huge ramps, and nice open territory there. Be nice, interesting for TVT also, actually, because you can probably set up a few tanks here, and that's going to completely defend these little ramps here. And so then you might have players coming through the middle to try and break in or something like that. Hey, I was talking about TVT and I made a T right there, and I can talk about T. The middle right there. Aha! They can come up that ramp, see? Get it? TVT. Okay, that's enough of that. Get rid of that and that. All right, I'm running out of things to say here, anyways. What else are we gonna say? There's a little statue of a hawk or something, maybe a mutalisk in the middle. That's kind of interesting. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. I'm sure that more interesting things will turn up about this map as play moves on. I'm sure that you know, Boxer and Up Magic will figure out awesome ways to utilize this map that I have never even considered before, and should be fun. Should be very, very interesting to say the least.